Hello, everyone. I am here today with Joe Pulizzi, and Joe is the founder of Content Marketing Institute, the leading education and training organization for content marketing, and it includes the largest in-person content marketing event in the world, which is called Content Marketing World. Joe is the winner of the 2014 John Caldwell Lifetime Achievement Award from the Content Council, and Joe just released his fourth book called Content Inc., and I highly recommend it because his third book, Epic Content Marketing, was named one of the 5 must-read business books of 2013 by Fortune magazine. And if you've ever seen Joe in person, he will be wearing orange. Joe, how are you doing today, and are you wearing your orange color?
Dave, thank you for having me. I actually don't have any other clothes besides orange, so I don't really have a choice anymore. It's basically, I open up the closet, it looks like the briefcase from Pulp Fiction, glowing orange, and I just pick out my duds for the day. That's just how it works.
Oh, cool. You scared me for a little bit when you said you're not wearing any. I was like, whoa, Joe, it's not that kind of podcast.
Yeah, exactly. This is a family show. So yeah, absolutely. Happy New Year. It's good to be alive, and yes, I'll wear orange tomorrow and the next day and the next day after that.
Oh, cool. And today we are going to be talking about content marketing with Joe, and we're going to be doing a review of the new basics for content marketing in 2017 and beyond. Very excited to dig in. Where one thing we didn't mention in his bio, Joe is the pretty much official godfather of content marketing, coined the term content marketing. He knows content marketing, breathes, lives it, eats it. So we are going to hear from the best in the business today.
So if you don't like Joe, content marketing, you can just stop listening to this.
Yeah, yeah. If you don't want to talk, if you don't want to listen to my content marketing, then
if it's content marketing is not what you're interested in, this is not the podcast for you.
This is not. This isn't for you, no, sir. All right, well, to kind of dig in here, but before we get into the specifics, and I'm going to want to get some specifics out of you,
sure.
But I just want you to give you have you give an overview of where you see the content marketing landscape. Has it fully matured? Is there still room for growth? Do you see this method of marketing staying the same, growing in the coming years? What's your assessment of where we stand?
Well, I think just to level set, I don't know, depending on who's listening, but, content marketing is the idea that to attract and retain customers, we're going to create valuable, compelling, and relevant content, relevant information on a consistent basis. It's very similar to what a media company will do, but instead of monetizing it like a media company does through, let's say, paid subscription or advertising, we're trying to sell more products and services. And as an approach, content marketing is well over 100 years old. One of my favorite examples is John Deere's The Furrow magazine. They've been doing that magazine now digital and print for 120 years. They have 1.5 million subscribers, 40 countries, and 14 different languages. And if you look at the history of John Deere, it's a great example because John Deere is John Deere because of that loyalty effort that they've been able to build all these years. So it's, content marketing is not a new thing. And then in 2000, let's say the mid-2000s, when, Google search engines started to become more prevalent, and we started to use our smartphones more, and then social media came into play. The control has gone to the consumer. So now the consumer can get in any information they want. Obviously, they've got a smartphone device with them. They can get access to information 24/7, and so we can't just tell people buy our products and services anymore because if they don't care about it, they're going to ignore us, and we've got to create information that's relevant. Now, if you want to ask, let's go to where the industry is at right now. Even though it is a very old industry, it's still rather immature. And even with, let's say, the last 10 years, we've seen a pretty good run with a lot of companies taking on the approach of content marketing. Most companies still don't have formalized strategies. They're still sort of in experimentation mode. There's lots of opportunities. You're leveraging a lot of mediums. So I think that what I've really seen, and like if you just sort of do a review over the last year, lots of people are trying content marketing, but not a lot of people are committing to it. It's something that takes time and patience to really build a long-term relationship with an audience. So what we've seen, Dave, over the past year or so is that a lot of people have dropped out. They've stopped doing content marketing, or they do it inefficiently, or they do it inconsistently, and it's not working for them. So we have a lot of haves and have-nots. The ones that have committed to it, They really focused on a target audience. They deliver value to that target audience every day, every week, every month, whatever the case is. They're successful. They're finding a lot of amazing examples that are happening, and they're changing customers' lives in certain ways, and then they're seeing that profitable behavior on the back end, and the ones that don't commit to it aren't seeing those types of things happen.
Yeah, and I'm living, breathing proof of that, and we, we're at our marketing firm here, we're taking a stand against that too, in the sense that, listen, we'll take, we don't want to take a little bit of money from you, we want a lifetime client, so we're not even moving forward anymore unless people are fully committed, because it's not just and correct me if I'm wrong here, but there's other benefits that take time as well. You have the search engine, the SEO benefits of all that. But as we all know, all these are long-term benefits. Now, you're building a brick house, and there's long-term benefits of it. But for that stuff to kick in, it takes time. To get the trust built up, that takes time. And if you don't give it time, it's just you're not going to get all the way through. And if you quit doing it or you do it half-assed, then it's like you're trying to put out like a forest fire, right? And if you just sprinkle a little bit here and there, you got to go at it if you're going to put it out.
No, I love that. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, one of the things I sort of enjoy when I go into a company, I tell them that they don't have to do this. You could you could just advertise and do traditional PR and work on referrals and do the same things that we've done for the last 20, 30, 50 years. And that's fine. You don't have to do content marketing. Now, I feel that content marketing can be a competitive advantage, but in order for it to work like you're talking about, you actually have to invest. Like I was telling somebody, I was on an interview the other day, we were talking about ROI, return on investment, and to get the R, Robert Rose says this all the time, my partner on our podcast, This Old Marketing, to get the R, you actually have to do some I. So you have to actually do some investment to get some of that return, and that does take time. And whether you're talking about building an email subscription list or getting found in the right search engine keywords or building an audience and a following on social media platforms, those things all take time. And if your time frame is, let's say, less than 12 months and you don't have the patience to go through sort of this experimentation phase and figure out work out all the kinks, if you will, then you might not want to do it, because it's most likely 90% of the time you're going to see the benefits happen after that 12-month time period.
Yeah, but then talk about that, though, because, sales is a very fine line when you're, or when you're trying to explain, or, even if you're just doing, giving advice to somebody, but you don't want to scare them away from it, but you want to be as genuine and honest as you can about it as well. So it does take time. So if you need like super quick fixes and you need that to happen right away, well, it's probably not for you. But if you do build up that and we'll talk about like what, paint a picture, after that 12 months, what's happening? It's not just like you're placing an ad that goes away, or you're doing SEM that goes away, or you're doing direct mail that goes away once you do it. So, talk a little bit about that, because I definitely don't want to scare people away from it, but I want to, at the same time be as accurate in setting the stage. And when you put out that 12-month time frame, some people are like, well, what kind of marketing takes 12 months to work? But it's different. It's solid. It's the foundation is just will set you up for life. But in your words, how would you paint that if you do the investment and you do get to that year mark? What can one expect?
Well, it's funny. I mean, you've gone through this, and we've gone through this as well at Content Marketing Institute. Of course, we used content marketing to be able to get to a point where we were able to sell our company last year, and I was able to reach a lot of personal goals. When I started my blog. This was in April of 2007. And we started a blog consistently. We built the e-newsletter. Didn't have much of an audience for the first 6 months, because you don't get found in Google. You're starting from basically zero. And to get a lot of that content out, you're going to actually have to pay for some social advertising and pay for some pay-per-click, because nobody knows who you are. I mean, if you're lucky enough to start with an audience and start with a database of subscribers, that's great. But it absolutely takes time. And when we got to, let's say, the 12 to 18 month, we're starting to see, oh, we've got a couple thousand email subscribers. This is starting to work. And you can actually start to look at the data and say, oh, there's a customer. customer that came from, they came from doing this search. They signed up, they downloaded our ebook, they signed up to our email newsletter, and then lo and behold, 3 months later, we've got a customer, and I can start to track that. And those things didn't happen until we got to the 12-month mark. Then you get to the 2-year mark, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we've got 10,000, 15,000 subscribers. Things are really working. We're actually driving direct revenues off of some of our content. We're actually, we started an event like a Content Marketing World. We were able to double the number of people going to that event. Why? Because they found us on search, they found us on social, and then they were interested in our products and services once we started to build that relationship. And then, then in year 3, things just blew up. I mean, things are just because we started to get found for almost every major search term in our category. We got now we're at 200,000 subscribers. I mean, I'm not saying the numbers don't really matter because it depends on what size business you have, whether it's consumer or B2B. The point that I'm trying to make is that if you can weather through the first 9 to 12 months and just take the wins for what they are. It's like, great, we had this really good qualitative feedback that, this person that got our email newsletter, they absolutely love it, and they've been opening it for the last few months, and we're starting to get more traffic coming in, and we're starting to get more shares on social media, and you take those, what we call more vanity metrics, and you take them for what they are, and you're like, great, this is a really good start. We're seeing some positive momentum. Then you want to do things like build that email subscription list and those things to start working. So that's sort of the journey that you have to paint. The unfortunate thing is, Dave, most people don't get to that 12-month mark because especially smaller businesses, they just get diverted into doing the business. It's like, I got to do this. We can't find somebody to write the blog today. Or, how important is getting that email newsletter out? It's critically important, but, work gets in the way. So that's why you have to commit to it and say, look, we're going to do this for the first year, then we're going to sit down and see how everything's working, obviously tweaking it along the way. So that's sort of the journey, and what you're talking about is building an asset. So honestly, I mean, it's not we're going to do this in place of advertising or we're going to do this instead of PR. It all works together. I mean, we think that content marketing makes advertising and PR better. But at some point,
you have something to advertise that's not about saying, "Look at me," 100 times in a row.
Well, the other thing is that when you build your own audience, you technically don't have to advertise. You don't have to pay that fee anymore, that turnpike fee, if you will, to get in front of an audience because you actually have the audience. So that's where it pays off in the long run because this is like it's an annuity. It just keeps building over, month after month. It gets bigger. You grow your audience. You get found, and once you're found in search, it's very hard to not, to lose that ranking. I mean, you move up and down, but if you're a credible site, Google will continue to drive traffic to you. So those things are long-term assets that can continue to work, and you can actually say, oh, look, we maybe don't have to spend as much in certain areas as we used to because we built this asset. And then it sort of snowballs, and you see these amazing effects happen year after year.
Yeah, and just to put some of this in context, like Google sometimes takes 5 to 7 weeks to even recognize something that's even happened, let alone it start to move the needle on something. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. So I mean that's you're going on 1 to 2 months just right then and there. So if people want to, I did this, and why am I not growing right away? They might not even know you even did anything.
Well, it's a great point. It takes a while to build a credible site in the eyes of Google. That's why a lot of this stuff takes time because people start linking to you, they start sharing your content. Google starts to notice those links, especially from credible sites. And then as you produce content, they're paying attention. Like if you're a brand new site and you have no credibility, Google's not even paying it. They don't even know you exist. They only know you exist when you start to help people and they start to go to that content and engage in that content on a regular basis. And Google looks up and says, hey, that site is actually delivering really good, solid results. Let's start looking at that. So they start paying your site more often. So now, like ContentMarketingInstitute.com, if we produce, we publish our piece of content every day at 6 o'clock in the morning. By 6:05, Google already has that indexed. Wow. But that's because we're a pretty credible site, and we've been working on it for 10 years.
Yeah,
but that's how
that's where you. Yeah, I know exactly. But for other people, yeah, there's a lag in what Google will index. But if you continue to do it and do it and do it, then you just start to snowball. Well, cool.
I think we painted a company, just like the New York Times or the Washington Post, that as soon as they publish something, Google and Bing and other outlets are paying attention because you actually deliver really good quality information and not just sales information that nobody really, really cares about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, content marketing is probably the #1 tool for building your SEO, and that's where I think a lot of people don't understand. You talk to any SEO expert, and I've had a lot of them on our podcast here, and they all, every single one of them, the biggest part of their link building and their SEO strategy is the content. Now, there are other ways to go about it, just getting your general, for local stuff, getting your general citations, and there's some basics. There's lots and lots of basics that you need to do. But overall, it's the best SEO tool there is, and that's another benefit. If you start getting found in those search engines, you are going to kill it. But it's just taking, the new normal is it just takes a little bit longer. The benefits are still the same. It's gotten pushed back a little bit. But with everything these days, I mean, how many people, accept telemarketing calls? Everything's getting crowded out there. So it's just, just like with anything else, it's just, you gotta just stick with it. Now, I think we painted a very fair picture. Nothing that's, over the top saying, oh, you're going to kill it in a month, and nothing that's saying it will never work. This is, I think we've set a very fair picture, and you can make a decision for yourself. If you want to go build a long-term brick house, this is the way to go. So to move on, I've seen you and Robert Rose talk a bit more and more lately about purpose-driven marketing. Can you dig into this for us, as it seems to be driving up to the top of the importance for content marketing plans?
Well, it's, our friend, there's a lot of people in the industry right now that are talking about the why behind what we publish. And I think it really comes down to creating information that's so important to your customers, it sort of goes beyond what you sell. It's interesting, if you look at Starbucks right now, they have a campaign called Upstanders, which basically they're highlighting heroes that we don't normally get to see. They're sort of trying to uncover heroes, and Starbucks is putting the money behind this because they have a greater purpose, and a lot of their content is actually behind veterans activities. And Starbucks has been behind veteran activities for a long, long time, and they've been going after that community. So they're starting to create videos and content around those types of things. They have a higher purpose and really focusing on that community. So as you think about, what is your higher purpose, the focus is, of course, it's on what you believe in as an organization and what's important to you, more than what you sell, but you have to connect that with what your audience's needs and pain points are, and that's what we call that sweet spot. And if you find that, that's where you can really make an impact. And a really good, if there's an activity to take a piece of paper and sort of look at who that audience is you're trying to target. That could be your customer, it could be a prospect, a group, whatever it is, and then write down, what's really important to them that we can focus on, and we can deliver information to them that's going to solve their needs and help them get a better job, live a better life in some way. And then on the other side, put the stories that are important to you. What are things that like, for example, with Content Marketing Institute, we're really involved in speech therapy for children that need speech and play therapy. And we started a foundation called Orange Effect Foundation, and everything that CMI does, and when we give, we focus on, that type of information around and giving around speech therapy. That's a higher purpose for us, and we've created some content around that. Not that you have to do that, but list those types of things that are important to you, and if you find a match there between what the audience's needs are and what the things that are really important to you as a company, that's where you can really find a higher purpose. And there's a lot more companies, like Chipotle is a good example, where they talk about sustainability in food, and they've done a number of videos around that. And sometimes that gets a little bit more traction than just, oh, here's an industry niche and we're going to answer all the questions in that industry. That's a fine strategy. You can do that. It's really good for SEO. But sometimes when it's so crowded in an area like that, you've got to think of a storyline that's a little bit different that sets us apart.
And you can mix them together. You can blend those two, can't you?
Absolutely. I mean, the great thing about this is publishing. There are no rules to this. You can focus on, and that's why it'll always be around, because you can always create a niche upon a niche. I mean, I grew up in, as you did, we grew up in publishing, B2B publishing and B2B media, and you think that, oh, man, how many different niches can you have? Well, it's unlimited. There's always another information area. I mean, I've been doing a lot of research in artificial intelligence, and there's all these different new content niches that are just being created because these technologies are changing and there's more information that's needed. So the exciting thing is if you go toward a higher purpose strategy or content marketing strategy, there's probably no shortage of areas that you could focus on.
Gotcha. Now, I appreciate all that. I think that, was going to start unlocking people's thought processes of now, granted, you do need to answer questions. You do need to do all that. But if you can, take a step back, like, hey, why are we doing this? Who are we really trying to help out? Well, hey, we really want to help moms learn about XYZ. We really want to, do that. And then if you can mix that in with the cause, well, then bingo, you're huge there. Now, another thing, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, documentation, and that kind of flows into, workflow planning. And at CMI, you all have done an amazing job, with your templates and all kinds of amazing stuff. And trust me, I bookmark tons of stuff that I go over with my team on a weekly basis. But you guys do an amazing job of continuing to refine and define the best practices for helping to keep marketers focused and on task, because this is a lot of stuff. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot going on. So I'd like for you to talk a bit about the best practices for marketers when it comes to workflow, and if there's anything that's possibly new that you've learned, over the course of the last 6, 12 months or so that in this area.
Well, I think so. We could do a whole day on just workflow. So it can be a challenge, but let's just talk about it in simple terms. First of all, you just have to very simply focus on who is that audience you're trying to target, and what is that content niche. So if we start out with, what is the strategy? We want to know who the audience is, what we're trying to talk about, and what our goal is. Like, what is your corporate goal? Are you trying to ultimately drive more sales? Are you trying to save costs? Are you trying to work on loyalty efforts? It's really important before you do anything to just really have those things grounded and know why you're doing the things that you're doing. Then you figure out, okay, this is the why we're doing it, and this is the content that we're going to start creating. This is where we feel we can be the leading expert in the world. Then you can start to think about, okay, what is it going to be? Is it going to be a podcast series? Is this going to be a blog? Is it going to be a custom magazine? You can start to visualize those things. And then you break those things apart in their components. So let's just take a blog, for example. You might say, okay, we believe that in order to accomplish this goal and to build our, let's say, email subscribers, we're going to start this blog, and we're going to blog 2 times a week. We're going to blog on Tuesday mornings and Thursday mornings. And then you figure, okay, you need 2 blog posts a week, and you're going to start to create what's called an editorial calendar, which is the most important thing when you're talking about workflow. You have to create it can be as simple as you do this. There's a lot of really good tools out there, but you could just start with an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet just to start with. And you're focusing on, okay, what is my topic? What's the keyword that I'm targeting? Who's the audience I'm going to target for this? What do I want them to get out of it? And who's the person that can actually start creating the raw content? So is that somebody in your organization? Is it somebody you're going to hire outside? Is it an agency? Maybe somebody like, Dave, you have a team that can work on this kind of thing. So that's the type of things you want to think about. And then you actually need an editor to work with that raw content. So you have somebody create the raw content, and then you have somebody actually edit that content. And you want to do this. My take is you always get the content in at least 2 weeks before it's due to publish. We don't want to be in a position where Monday we're thinking, oh my gosh, we don't have the content done. What do? We need to publish this blog post on Tuesday. You're already too late. You're going to rush the process. I want you to make sure that you've got sort of a quarterly feel for your calendar, what's needed, and you're working so that when you're completing about 2 weeks ahead. And then those are the types of things that you want to think about. And then from that standpoint, just to sort of complete the workflow, you've got to have somebody that's going to approve this. So who in your organization has to see it, has to approve it? Is it your CEO? Is it your marketing person? Is it your PR person? Is it an engineer on the team that's got to look at whether or not these things are right or wrong, those types of things. And then once you publish it, then you've got all the distribution things to think about. So you're going to be working with your social media person, and you're going to be thinking, okay, do we want to buy some advertising to promote some of this content? And then at the end of the day, you're going to be saying, how are we going to measure this thing? You know, what are we going to look at? Email subscriptions? Is that we're trying to build an audience? Are we trying to look at total number of traffic and social shares, and is that meaningful at all to our organization? So that's kind of a very quick overview to look at simple workflow, but the key is make sure you have an editorial calendar and you work ahead just like every smart publishing company, so that not at the last minute you're going, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Because when that happens, Dave, you're probably going to skip it, you're not going to do it, and that's, again, how it breaks down, because content is a promise to your customers, and you got to keep that promise.
Gotcha. So in a nutshell, identify who's involved, the roles, identify what each role does, the task, identify when the tasks get done, the flow, and then stick to it.
You said that much quicker. I could have just said that, and we could have saved everybody 5 minutes.
Well, I just was taking a synopsis of everything you were saying, basically. But no, we need you to explain. Yeah, if I just say that, people won't know the context. But yeah, absolutely. And moving kind of within that, you know, building your team, has it changed? You know, who should be involved in this day and age? You know, maybe speak on this for like a larger company with more resources and possibly a 1 to 2 person team. You know, do you have, you know, some input on that? Or has it changed at all? Is it still the same sort of skill sets? Are you merging? You know, do you see people having merged skill sets these days? Basically, you know, anybody who does graphic design for us needs to understand the SEO part, for instance, now. You know, in the past, you might have your SEO technical people and you had your graphic people and writers these days. You know, there's a blend of knowledge there, at least from what I'm seeing. So what do you see? You know, what's evolved since, you know, even over the last year in skill sets and the kind of people that you need involved here?
Well, it's definitely a mixture of marketing and publishing. I mean, we've seen a lot of large companies, they've actually hired a lot of journalists, a lot of writers, a lot of editors, because most companies have marketing people, but they don't have people that understand how to tell a really good story. So you need those types of people, but at the same time, to your point, you need somebody that's going to understand how do we distribute this and how do we get that found. So if you think about, okay, you have your content creators, and the content creators, it means you have some design people, you have some writers, and then you need some editors to make sure that content is correct and it's edited and it works really well. And then you need, ultimately, you're starting to see some audience development people. If you look back in, you know, B2B, they used to call them circulation directors. Well, now they're called audience managers or audience development managers on the brand side. And those people that are saying, look, we're creating all this content. How are we building an audience? And what is that audience doing? That's a very important role. So we're starting to see a lot of people move from the publishing industry over to the brand side, because once you create the content and you distribute that content and market it, you've got to figure out, okay, how are we growing that audience? Because it's all about, at the end of the day, pure content marketing approach is all about building an audience that then shows profitable behaviors for our business. If you just focused on that, you're going to be successful. So that's a big change we've seen in the last few years, is this hiring of audience development people.
Gotcha. Cool. And kind of bleed into other people involved here is sales team involvement. You know, and traditionally it's marketers marketed, salespeople sold, but now it seems like these two departments are starting to be asked to work together a ton more. Can I get your take here, as well as some pointers for how maybe they can team up when it comes to their content marketing initiatives?
Well, it's really smart. If in most companies, sales leads the charge, and historically marketing has been more of a collateral department. Oh, you need sales collateral, you need to make it look pretty, marketing will do that. Well, now you've got marketing creating a lot of customer touch points that never happened before. So like we've talked about with search and social, customers are going out and getting that information. In a lot of cases they're bypassing sales. So what's happening is sales is really important, still important, but they're doing what you want them to do is you want them to be there to close the deal. So a lot of the upfront, the education and the nurturing, which used to happen through a salesperson, is happening through content. So if you're a marketing person in an organization, you would be very well served to meet with your salespeople on a regular basis, even going on sales calls. A lot of marketers don't go on sales calls. You've got to set some time to go out on sales calls so you can understand, here's what the customers are dealing with, here's some of the questions they're dealing with, and you can integrate and talk to your salespeople and figure out, look, how can I make you more successful? How can I help? Is there content that we can provide for you that your customers are asking for that we don't have right now that can make your job easier? Because if you get sales on your side as a marketing person, it's going to make your job a lot easier. So at the end of the day, you're going to want to show some impact for this thing, and the more sales are using your content, the better it's going to be. So if you're not doing it, go out on sales calls, and at minimum, sit down with your sales team and figure out how you can help them, and just sit down and look, what's your problems, what you're dealing with, what's your pain points, and treat them like an audience that you want to solve in some way with some content, and then you can help. That'll help you in your editorial planning to create the most effective, relevant content for your customer.
Very cool, and that kind of really leads really good into, this next question about buying stage content. This is also something that you've heard people talk about more and more lately, not necessarily buying stages. That's been around for quite a bit and talked about quite a bit, but producing content for the different stages of the buying cycle. And for the purposes of, clarity here, let's just talk about 3 stages of buying cycle. They can go 3, 5, or 7, but let's just go with awareness, consideration, and buying to keep it easy.
Sure.
But can you talk a bit about some of the new best practices here, basically like how much content for each stage, best practices for staying organized here, best practices to serve this content up at the right time, et cetera?
Well, first of all, I have to throw out that there's no perfect way to do this. So there's nobody out there who's going to say, this is the way that it's done.
It's
because
tough.
Everyone is different. But what I will say is this. We get a lot of people out there that are trying to figure out the buyer's journey. And like we had one customer that had it down to 51 points. There's 51 little micro decisions.
Oh, my goodness.
That I know, that the customer's making. And how do we create content for every 51 of those areas? And you know what? You're not. And if you try to create content for those areas, it's going to drive you crazy. So what we want to do is we want to focus on, almost to your point, what you said is create this very good awareness experience where most of your content is probably an awareness. This is problem solution content. It's not about your products and services. It's about solving the pain points of your customers. You're answering a lot of questions. That's when you get into a lot of that higher purpose content. So that's your awareness experience. Then you have a really, really good pre-sales experience. This is where you have all your products and services, your case studies, your testimonials. Those are all there. So when somebody's ready to buy, they've got all the information they need, really well presented. There's a good path to doing that. And then you want an exceptional loyalty experience or retention experience. So once they've purchased, how are you communicating with that customer on a regular basis? Is it through a magazine, an e-newsletter? What are those ongoing updates so that you're helping with cross-sales, with upsells, with referrals, whatever the case is? And Dave, I feel if you just focus on mastering those 3 things, probably with the majority of your content at the awareness level, you've got a good chunk of your sales content, right at the pre-conversion, pre-sales area, so that's a good sale, and that's where you want to talk to the sales team and make sure that you have what the customers need there. And then an amazing loyalty experience. If you just did that, most companies don't do that, Dave. If you just figure out those 3 areas, you're going to be 99% of the way ahead of most of your competition.
Awesome. And Michael Brenner, I think he defines this to kind of put it in perspective. And you've said it. You said the majority of your content needs to be in the awareness stage, but the way he puts it is, for every one piece of buying stage content, which would be like demos, coupons, deals, specials, free bids, samples, that kind of stuff. For every one of those, you need 10 consideration, which would be comparisons, basically, how you stack up against competition, testimonials, that kind of stuff, to 100 pieces of awareness stage. So the awareness is where you front load your content. Are we in agreement there? I mean, you said the majority of your content, but is that kind of how you do as far as the ratio goes?
I would probably, that's probably a fair assessment, because, and especially from Michael Brenner's standpoint, when he came from SAP, and what they found is they had 10 times the amount of sales content to one piece of awareness content. And if you look at the opportunities, it's completely the opposite way of what it should have been. So they were had so little content for so many people looking for different things that SAP could be a solution provider for. So what he basically flipped the funnel around for them, so that he could start focusing on the needs, because they weren't getting found in anything in search and whatnot. And that's actually what most companies do. They actually have so much sales, product, service, feature, benefit content, and let's say 90% of their content is about us and about what we have in-house already, and 10% is about really solving our customers' needs. So if you just do a basic content audit on your website, where you'll easily find out where you're leaning, and most companies have very little content on the awareness side.
Yeah, and for that content audit, you can just create those 3 stages and start, hey, where does this fall? And then you do that exercise, and then you'll see where you're negligent with your content.
Yep.
Cool. All right. To move forward here with specific types of content, there's a ton of talk about interactive content and video, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form diminishing the importance of those. Those are super important. But with all the talk about that stuff, is the written word, is it going to be less of a priority? Is that the case at all? Do you see that? Or is there a blend still? What's your take there?
Well, first of all, look at things like audio content and video content. Can be very important, very impactful. But if you're going to do that, you've got to make sure they're consistent. Like, for example, if you're going to do a podcast, make sure it's a regular thing. If you're going to do a video series, don't just upload a video to YouTube every once in a while. Make sure it's a regular series about something, just like a television show would be. And that's where a lot of people go wrong. It's much easier to do that for companies in the written word. And where we're actually seeing, the written word has more written content than other types of content out there, and that will be the case for a long time. And where we're seeing a resurgence in written content is because of all the Alexas and the Siris of the world. In order for those to work on command now, they need to get that from the written word. So when you want it works just like Google. When you say, Alexa, what's the answer to this or what's the answer to that, that could pull from your site, but it comes from the written word. So you see, there's a whole next generation thing happening. I don't want to get beyond the point.
No, you're not getting beyond the point. You're making the point. You're making the point that you Google, if you want to get the search benefits of stuff, yeah, you can alt text videos and, get some, link juice and benefits there and all of that. But if you do just go heavy on those other things, you're basically saying, hey, you better be stupendous at that. That better be your driving, your driving deal, like maybe like a Red Bull or something like that. But do not assume that the written word is less of a priority. It's still equal, and if you even do a webinar or a podcast, scribe those out, put it out there. So because what you're mentioning about Siri and Alexa, all that's Google-based, search-based. Yep. So you've actually made the exact point, Joe.
Well, I think what I would do if I'm just starting in this, I'm choosing. Like I'm going to say, like, what can we be great at and do consistently? I'd say, okay, we're going to do this email newsletter really, really well. We're going to do this blog really, really well. Or we're going to do this podcast amazingly well, or this webinar series. And, of course, we want to diversify at some point and do a lot of these things. But if you're starting out, do one thing really well. And if you do one thing really well, then you can diversify off of that once you build an initial audience.
Gotcha. Now, promoting that stuff. You've touched on it a little bit. In the past, I'd say past meaning 12 months ago, previous to that, you didn't hear a ton, and even at CM World, a ton about promotion of content, because it was all about organic and everything. But then when things get crowded, well, then you got to continue to evolve with the world. So you didn't hear a ton about promotion of your content through the Facebook, LinkedIn's of the world. Can you just touch on that briefly? You kind of touched on it a little bit, but can you kind of set the record straight with exactly how this new day and age of content marketing and how promotion of that content plays its part now?
Well, if you go to advertising and look at so for every dollar of advertising, you're generally spending 20% on creation and 80% on promotion. So 20% on the creation of the ad and 80% on the media placement. I would actually look at that. I think that's a fair way to look at content marketing today. So if you create, if you're creating a piece of content, or you have let's say a program, 20% of that program's cost should probably go to the content creation, and 80% should go to the promotion, until you build up an audience that you don't have to promote as much, and you actually have that audience opted in to an email newsletter or whatever the case is, and they've already subscribed to it. So that's the way that I would look at it. And then you could look at things like, I'm going to spend money on pay-per-click keywords. I'm going to do things like social advertising to get that content out there. I'm going to buy advertising on certain sites that make sense, where my audience is at. That's where native advertising comes in, where I might actually pay for content on a media, a publishing site that's relevant to my audience. So those are the types of things that I would look at. And if you're looking for that breakout, 20-25% content creation, 80-75% on promotion side.
What about your influencer marketing? Well, what are your thoughts there? There's more and more talk about. You hear about influencer marketing. Now you're hearing about content marketing, influencer marketing, holding hands together. Can you touch on that? And is that just a method for larger companies with a lot bigger budgets, or is that also something smaller, medium-sized companies can take a look at?
No, absolutely. And I would put that on the promotion side of the bucket. You need people that are going to help set up those relationships with influencers. And to think about influencers, this is everybody's kind of throwing around influencer. Really, you want to focus on where are your customers hanging out if they're not on your site. Are they hanging out on association sites, other media sites, blogging sites? Are they really influencers? And what you want to do is build some kind of a relationship with them. And the simple thing to do is just, whatever size company you are, just list the 5 to 10 places your customers are hanging out on the web when they're not talking to you. And those could be all various size and different kinds of sites. And you want to figure, okay, do we want to partner with this company in some way? Do we have to pay to get on that site? Just start asking yourself the questions about what makes the most sense. And sometimes it's better to go with the second tier and the third tier influencers than the first tier. First tier, they're probably already rock stars. They're getting all kinds of offers. But the second tier ones, they want to be the rock stars. So sometimes they're a little bit easier to work with than the ones that are already rock stars.
Yeah, you got to build up, and just make it make sense. Obviously, it's hard to get a $50,000 influencer on a $2,500 a month budget, right? So
yeah, exactly. Whatever makes sense. But some of these are really easy. Some of these are like, oh, in my industry, let's say that you are a heating and air conditioning company, and there's a magazine called HVACR Distribution Business Magazine, and you could reach out to them and say, hey, I've got some really good content that I want to create on this topic, and you really need to have this topic, and you're not doing it right now. Can I do that? They might be open to that. That's a very simple way to think about an influencer strategy. It's an old, placement strategy, but that's the kind of thing. That's an influencer. A media company is an influencer, where you may not have to pay for placement, but you have to make the call and come up with an interesting idea and fill a gap that they need filled.
Yeah, and from to kind of encourage people to do that, understand that you're helping them if you indeed do have something really good to say, and you have some really good resource. You're helping that media company. That's one less article that they need to write. That's one less one more piece of good information they can give to the marketplace.
You got to remember that influencer bloggers and influencer sites and associations and media companies, they all need content. They all need to fill content just like we do. So if you have something that you can help them fill, then that's saving them money and time. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, to just understand that a lot of people are a little skittish about that and say, hey, get in your head. This is a partnership. You know, you are helping them. Now, you know, you got to bring your, you know, you got to do your part and not just do something, hey, I have this great piece of content and it's all about me, right? No, but no, if it's all about, you know, tips, you know, what people can do in the wintertime when, you know, it's 11:30 at night and their air conditioner or heater goes out, right? You know, I mean, if it's stuff like that, well, then yeah, that's some good information that's going to, you know, make them look better to their marketplace.
Exactly
so yeah,
right.
now mobile. That's not new. It's very important. It's been important. It's growing in importance. But is there anything new that content marketers need to keep in mind now and into the future in regards to mobile? Maybe any potential tips or resources you can point people to stay on top of the best practices here?
Well, I think the important thing to realize is that here's a very simple strategy. Is your content presentable on mobile? Are your calls to action presentable on mobile? Because I think businesses tend to open up a browser on their laptop or desktop and they say, oh, everything looks good. When you're probably more and more, and we see this every day, more and more people are accessing content on mobile. I mean, if you look at international audiences, there's some international audiences that are all mobile. And we're getting that way in North America as well. So if you need to be cognizant of that, and the simple rule is just make sure it's presentable. And a lot of people call that a responsive web design, where whatever your process is set up for whatever content management system you have on your desktop, it should make sure that it works on mobile. And what you do is you don't have to, and I'm not a technical guy, Dave, but just make sure that when you check this out, you don't have to have all the navigation and all the calls to action that you would have on your desktop. You probably limit, you know, you've got that little hamburger menu, that you've got limited options for whatever things they want to find on mobile. So it's a little bit different representation. But the simple thing is just make sure it works on both, and if it doesn't, get your IT person on it or talk to an agency that can help you to make sure that that works. That's and
so
most companies, most small businesses we talk to, they don't have that.
Yeah, no, we made our own mistakes here. You know, we've had some great pieces, and then it's like, oh, dang, it's not looking how we want it to look. So before you publish, just check it, do your proofing on desktop and do your proofing on mobile, and check it out. And if there are some weird template-y things, you're going to need to get technical with it, but somebody can help you out with that. Okay, cool. Measurement, is there any new metrics to keep an eye on? Anything new going on there?
Well, I mean, you know how I feel. I've talked about this. I talk about it all the time. It's very, very simple to me. I mean, what we want to see is profitable behavior change in the audience we build. So as you're doing all this content marketing, let's say we talked about the blog. Let's say we do the blog, and the call to action on the blog is to sign up to the e-newsletter. Good. Now we've got their name. We actually have something that we can measure. We've got an audience person that we can measure. You can start to look at things like, oh, what types of content are they engaged in? Are they opening those emails? And you can take that all the way into the actual sales conversion. Did they buy? Or if it already is a customer, you can say, oh, well, if they've signed up to our e-newsletter and they read our blogs, are they more apt to buy? Do they buy more? Do they stay longer? Those are the things that really excite me. Like if I look at Content Marketing Institute metrics, we know that those people that subscribe to at least 3 things we offer, you know, the magazine, the e-newsletter, our webinar series, our training series, they're way more likely to buy something, pay money and buy something from us. So those are the things that we look at, and you have to come up with your own. You actually have to look at the data, make the hypothesis, and move forward, but we really believe that the best way to do that is actually to create the audience, get them to opt into something, and then you can really measure it.
Gotcha. You know, to close here a little bit, do you have any favorite marketing technologies, anything new that you think is really cool for people to look into?
Well, we talked a lot about search, and I'm a big fan of Moz and a big fan of SEMrush, for analytics. BuzzSumo is great. TrackMaven is great. There's so many to mention, but you know, those are the types of things that I would look at, especially if you're looking at written content and analytics and really trying to make sense to get more people going to your site through search. And then on the email side, really good, reputable email provider would you know, whether it's Emma, whether it's MailChimp, or whether you get into, you know, if you advance so much, you're getting into marketing automation. That's a little bit down the road. But just if you have a really good content management system, a really good email system, and then some other tools that we just talked about to measure how it's doing, I think you're going to be just fine.
Cool. Any other parting thoughts before I have to let you go?
No, I think we bored people enough with our content marketing talk. No, hopefully it's been helpful. We went through a lot of stuff there.
Amazing. Yeah, we did, and we did. It's always a good time talking with you, Joe. How can people continue to learn from you?
So anything on content marketing, you can get at contentmarketinginstitute.com, and then anything on me and my books is joepulizzi.com, and then I'm probably easiest to get in touch with on Twitter, and I'm at Joe Pulizzi, P-U-L-I-Z-Z-I, on Twitter.
Yeah, J-O-E-P-U-L-I.
J-O-E, yep, you got it. J-O-E-P-U-L-I-Z-Z-I.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Godfather. And
thanks,
until next time.
Always a pleasure.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye. All right, cool. Thanks, Joe.